The object of Taxi Chronicles is to allow real riders with real stories, share their experience and enhance your life. So sit back and enjoy the journey. Morning, morning, morning. Yes, we're back with another episode, another rider. Today we have a lovely lady in the car all the way from up north Scotland, and she's down here and she's got a very specific profession which is actually helps my life, makes my life a lot easier. But without me explaining, I'd allow the lovely lady to explain. Helen, would you let us know what you do?
Thanks very much. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Simon. Sorry.
Simon, yeah, nice to meet you, Simon. So I work for a company called Energysaving Trust, and we a lot of what we do is administer grants for the government in a sort of energy space. I'm trying to switch to green energy, and so my job primarily at the moment is to administer grants for local authorities to access funding to help them install charge points for electric vehicles to make it more accessible for public use. So about 30% of people in the UK don't have access to at-home charging. They can't park on a driveway or somewhere in a garage, and they're reliant on like public infrastructure to be able to charge. So the government's giving money to local authorities to try and make that more accessible and give them money to install charge points on lamp columns along streets or in car parks and places like that. And yeah, I administer those grants.
What gets me, you said 30% don't have that capability.
That's based on like the number of properties that don't have access to, like don't have a driveway or things like that.
Okay.
It changes a lot with the demographic that you're looking at. So if you look at like tradespeople, the number is usually given as a bit more like 75% because they tend to live in places, flats or terrace houses and things like that don't. So people that might have their own van for their business are even less likely to have access. So it's 30% is a bit of a rough figure based on properties, but it changes a lot depending on who you're thinking about in the population.
So what came to mind is that throughout the United Kingdom, I assume it's about the United Kingdom, not just London?
Yeah, absolutely.
Most people live in houses then?
Yeah.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Okay. When this government gives the council the grants, who controls the power unit? Do they hand it over to a subcontractor?
For the actual charging of the vehicles. It's quite varied, so some will have like a concession contract, so they'll have a company that comes in and then the council will buy the charge points and pay for them to be installed, but then they'll pay someone to operate them for them. Some of them are going for more of like an own and operate model, where they themselves then take on that responsibility of managing the charge points. There's pros and cons. It's obviously a lot more work to do it themselves, but then they tend to get more of the revenue back to the council, so it's a way for them to generate money. And a lot are trying to look at doing that to then invest that money back in, and keep building the infrastructure as they go. But it's a long game at the moment because there's not much money in it. The number of people that are charging is still quite low, so there's not super amounts of revenue, especially these kind of charge points, because they're trickle. Exactly. You're looking at like between 3.5 up to 22 kilowatt charge points, which are mostly going to be doing overnight charging for residential use, so they're not really going to make a lot of money. Do
we have the infrastructure, as in because I was talking to someone one time, they're saying we don't have enough power for everyone to charge their car at night.
Yeah, there's a lot of worries about that. Something that I'm not an expert on that side of it, but something that I know that the sort of National Grid have come out and said, I'm maybe going to get this wrong, but they are at the moment have kind of guaranteed that everyone has the capacity to charge at home, and also what was it? There was two things: an electric vehicle and. Have you heard about heat pumps?
No.
So it's like a different kind of boiler. So they're electric heaters, electric boilers, but they work by taking heat from the air or the ground. So there's air source or ground source heat pumps, and they're basically way more energy efficient than a standard electric boiler or a gas boiler in terms of their energy consumption, and then obviously they're electric, so they can be run on green energy. So the National Grid has kind of said that they have built capacity to a point where they're confident everyone can have those at home and the grid will cope with it. So
everybody has to change their boiler system.
Yeah, that's next.
That sounds like another. Someone needs to get into the boiler business. I bet Boris is going to give his mate the contract and stuff. So I take it London is the most city with the most electrical hubs charging hubs.
Yeah, there's definitely been a big surge in the sort of infrastructure development down here. And it's something that the grant that I administer is kind of designed to change, is that, you know, obviously for the companies out there that are looking to get on the ground and invest now, where they see that, okay, this is where things are going, we're going to electric vehicles, they're looking at the commercially viable sites in your big cities where you're going to have loads of turnover and you're going to have loads of destination park, you know, also on like motorways and places where people are going to stop and pay for like a super fast rapid charge point. Places that are going to be really profitable, that's where they're investing. They don't want to invest in residential use because, like we said, there's not really that much money in it. So the grant that we're administering is partly designed to try and negate that and encourage, just make money available to pay for those charge points where the companies aren't going to install. It's still a bit of a struggle to get them to install because they will argue, oh, this isn't viable, we can't install here. But
so there's two things. I see them in new blocks of flats in the basement where people have residential parking or supermarkets, things like that. But then there's also the other side where even if they're putting them in, whether supermarkets or on motorways, petrol station where the service station is, the car models are increasing their capacity every year. The battery, and quite significant. Obviously Tesla's up there with 350 volts or something like that, 350 kilowatts. But then like the Chinese market, I know it's a different country, but they have a 1,000 mile capacity on their battery charging, and they can charge within 5 minutes.
Wow.
So
that's rapid.
So what I'm thinking is that you're doing a great job, but we'll always be playing catch up.
I mean, I think, of course, like this is a whole new industry and it's gonna, as with everything, it's gonna develop super quickly and change. But I think for the use that we're thinking about, like overnight charging, whether you're, if you imagine, average Joe's driving home in the end of the day, parking up their car and they're parking for 8 to 10 hours overnight usually. Regardless of like how big your battery is, you're probably going to get enough charge even from a slow charger with that setup. So looking at that's it's not too much of a concern. And most people even on that wouldn't need to charge every day either. Most people aren't driving the full capacity of their battery. If they're only doing 40-50 miles a day, then there's room for like not getting that full charge all the time. They don't necessarily. So
where does the government stand in petrol stations setting up? Because like I went on this, you call it market research, where I think it's Shell or BP, they're designing whole forecourts now just for charging vehicles. Is the government giving them incentive to do that?
Yeah, that's something I know a lot less about actually, because I'm so focused on the residential stuff. That's an area where you see a lot more investment just from the companies themselves, because they know this is where the money is going to be. And just replacing the sort of existing petrol infrastructure to electric. I think there's certainly been some sort of like grants done to encourage a bit of innovation or a bit of testing of these things where there was maybe uncertainty, but I think that side of it is being left sort of more up to the market to handle, is my understanding anyway.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for that.
My pleasure. Unexpected 3 a.m. interview, but sure.
Yeah, and we wish you well.
Thanks very much.
We hope that episode enhanced your life. We post an interview every day as well as vlogging on our social media channel. Don't forget to subscribe to get our latest episode.